Hi, it's John, and welcome to the channel. Great to have you along today. It is Saturday, January the 18th, 6:36 a.m. Getting going a little later today. Took some time to get this video and its elements together. Of course, I've got the big blue mug of coffee, and I'm just shy of 5,000 subscribers on the channel. A little over a month ago, I had 400. Thanks for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Click on the subscribe button. Okay, I want to get away from talking about the Liberal leadership campaign. It's all you hear about in Canadian politics right now. And I woke up this morning saying, don't want to talk about that, even though Chrystia Freeland got in yesterday. Watch yesterday's video where I comment on her and what's going on with Mark Carney and such. But I want to talk about the guy who I think has been leading the way in Canada and setting the agenda for the Liberal government for the last year and a half to 2 years since he became the leader of the opposition here in Canada. Of course, I'm talking about Pierre Poilievre. And these are issues that I don't think Trudeau would even be talking about. I don't think the Liberal Party would be talking about. I don't think the leadership contenders for the Liberal Party would be talking about if it wasn't for Pierre Poilievre. So what are they? In no particular order: crime, the carbon tax, housing, immigration, and the cost of living. And I think these 5 things are probably top of mind for most Canadians, whether you're a conservative or not. So let's start off with the cost of living. So first up, a couple of clips back to back from Pierre Poilievre. The first one, he talks about a man who came up to him and says he has to work 3 jobs and he feels ashamed because he can't buy a home for his kids. And the second one, he talks about inflation, which he blames on Justin Trudeau. Come back right after these clips. We'll find out how Justin Trudeau has reacted to this, because Pierre Poilievre is the one leading the agenda in Canada.
We're renting. We have no hope. We've given up on ever owning a home. We're renting. We can barely make it. And he said to me, I feel ashamed when I talk to my kids because they ask me why I'm never around and why we can never have a house. And I feel like a failure. But he didn't fail. He has been failed.
That's right.
He has been robbed of the promise of Canada. It was a very simple promise, that if you worked hard, you got a good life. Now, it wasn't fancy or extravagant, but you got a house with a yard where you could have kids playing safely. And you could have a nice dog that you could afford to feed along with the kids. And your kids could play safely in the streets. That was the promise. Now, politicians break promises all the time. But you know what was bad about this promise? This promise didn't belong to this Prime Minister. It wasn't his promise to break. It belonged to all of us. Inflation, high taxes, deficits, high interest rates are all symptoms. The disease is overspending. When governments spend too much money, there's only 3 ways to get it. One is to raise your taxes. The other is to borrow, which means that they'll tax you more later on. And the third way is to print money. Now, printing money seems like a painless way to pay for things, but it's very simple. If you have 10 apples and $10 in the economy, it's a bucket apple. If you double the number of dollars in the economy to 20, you still only have 10 apples. You're not twice as rich. It's just that each apple costs twice as much. And that is a tax on the working people because it chews up the purchasing power of your paycheck.
Poilievre eloquent when he talks about these issues. Again, he's driving the agenda in this country. He's talking about this all the time. This was a tweet yesterday where he's pointing out what Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland have done when it comes to costs in this country, the cost of living. But, you know, the reaction from the Trudeau Liberals, the Liberal Party, Chrystia Freeland, probably Mark Carney, who was behind this as well, was a GST holiday, which most people thought was just a gimmick. I think it was a gimmick. We've got businesses here in Calgary. Here's a headline right now saying it hasn't really helped out. Now, some businesses say they've had a pickup in sales, but as the Fraser Institute points out, all this is doing is shifting when people buy things. People only have so much expendable cash. They might buy it now because they can get a little break on the GST, but they're not going to be spending that money later. So that's what we get from the Trudeau Liberals. But again, this is because Pierre Poilievre has been making this an issue. It never was an issue, and this tax holiday never would have come along if it wasn't for Pierre Poilievre. So let's move on to the next thing on my list. Let's move along to crime. Another place that Poilievre has been leading the way, setting the agenda for the Canadian government, is on crime. We hear him all the time say jail, not bail, people getting out of jail, going out and committing additional crimes. I'm going to focus on one crime because Poilievre put together a devastating video that he put out on X, and it's called You Know What They Say About Imitation. So watch this, and it shows you how Poilievre is leading the way when it comes to crime in this country.
After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, car thefts are up 300% in Toronto, 100% in Ottawa and Montreal. Yesterday, we announced our common sense reform of the Federal Criminal Code to put the brakes on auto theft. It includes a mandatory 3 years of jail for 3 cars stolen, no more house arrest for career car thieves, jail, not bail, for repeat career car thieves. We're going to save the money that Trudeau's spending on management consultants and put that into boots on the ground. We will use some of this money to invest in state-of-the-art X-ray equipment to allow for rapid scanning of containers at our 4 major ports. We will purchase 24 of these scanners. Each of them are capable of doing 150 containers per hour. We will hire a special team of CBSA officers on the ground. We will cut $165 million of management consultants to pay for $135 million of stronger security at our ports, saving a net $30 million. Not to mention the billions of dollars we will save by interrupting this extremely costly Trudeau car crisis and putting it to an end once and for all.
The agency will explore new detection technology solutions and the use of advanced analytical tools such as artificial intelligence.
That announcement overlaps with what the opposition has been calling for days.
Question, are we talking about machinery and scanners or also to hire officers? Answer, it's for both. It's to hire officers who will conduct those searches and also to hire people in criminal intelligence.
Pierre Poilievre also said that he would be spending millions, that he would outfit the CBSA with new scanners. Essentially, aren't you just repeating what he said he would do today? Like, aren't you admitting he has good ideas?
No, Mr. Poilievre makes up all kinds of things all the time.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yes. Is there a better example of how Poilievre is setting the agenda when it comes to crime in the country? Now let's move along to a big one, the carbon tax. Pierre Poilievre has been absolutely clear on what he thinks of the carbon tax. He wants to axe the tax. He talks all the time about a carbon tax election. And he may get it sooner than later, because it looks like the tides are turning when it comes to the Liberals as well. You know that Liberals are going door to door talking to people in their ridings, and they're hearing about this all the time. A lot of them say it's time to get rid of this issue because it's going to kill them when it comes to the next election. We know Chrystia Freeland has voted in lockstep with Justin Trudeau and her party for years, every year putting that carbon tax up on April 1st. What does the possible leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, think of the carbon tax?
I will be very clear that I think the moves that have been made on the carbon price and providing the prospect of having it legislated to 2030, that is one of the most powerful incentives globally to provide support for investment and to encourage investment. Its power will grow with time.
Now, so far, carbon prices have been applied sparingly. They've been set far too low, in the single digits on average globally, well short of the estimated $80 to $100 a ton needed by the end of this decade to keep us on track to net zero.
Isn't it fascinating that Pierre Poilievre has driven this agenda so far that people like Freeland and Carney, who are so in favor of taxing the crap out of you with the carbon tax, are starting to back off on the issue? They're writing news stories about it, and they're putting news stories on the air about this as well.
And our political specialist, Glenn McGregor, believes both candidates will propose major changes to Trudeau's current carbon tax.
City News has confirmed with Freeland's camp that she intends to walk away from at least the consumer part of the carbon tax. When Carney was on The Daily Show, he talked about the need to make sure that the biggest emitters, that is the oil and gas sector in Alberta, are paying the commercial part of of the carbon tax. So it looks like he wants to continue carbon pricing for industry.
So once again, Pierre Poilievre driving the agenda here in Canada. And you may see the end of the carbon tax prior to the next election because of him and because he's been so relentless on that issue. Up next, let's talk about housing. When it comes to housing, we've got a real problem in this country. Not enough houses, not enough rental spaces, too many people, prices go through the roof, something Poilievre's been talking about for a year and a half to 2 years.
Only a decade ago, the average mortgage payment for a new home was $1,400. Today, $3,200. The average rent on a one-bedroom, about $970. Today, about $1,800. The average needed down payment for a new home, $22,000. Now, $46,000. Double, trouble.
The Trudeau government, from the very beginning in 2015, said they were going to build more houses. They've spent billions of dollars. They aren't building houses. And just a little while ago, Trudeau said this.
Housing isn't a primary federal responsibility. It's not something that we have direct carriage of, but it is something that we can and must help with.
Amazing to think that a short time ago, Justin Trudeau said that it's not a federal responsibility. Now, it's not the federal responsibility to pay for people's houses, to subsidize houses for people, but to make it easier for people to build houses so we have more of them in the country. And Trudeau's starting to come around once again because of Pierre Poilievre. And now let's move on to immigration. Some people say Pierre Poilievre has been a little bit slow talking about the immigration issue. Of course, it's a difficult one because as soon as you start talking about immigration, the left starts screaming the R word at you. But he has been very good on this as of late. So I'm going to play a video of Poilievre, and because of Poilievre talking about this issue, again, driving the agenda, I'll play a clip right after it of Justin Trudeau.
They grew the population almost 3 times as fast as the housing stock. That is entirely a decision of Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. When I'm Prime Minister, population growth will be below the growth in jobs, housing, and healthcare.
Poilievre's statement comes as a new survey from Leger and Post Media found 78% of Canadians believe current immigration rates are contributing to the housing crisis, while 76% believe it's contributing to stresses on the healthcare system. And 72% believe Canada's immigration policy overall is too generous.
Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn.
So that Trudeau video, a direct reaction to Pierre Poilievre again driving the agenda in this country. And this issue wouldn't even be an issue if it wasn't for Pierre Poilievre and his leadership on this. So look at those 5 things again. Crime, carbon tax, housing, immigration, cost of living. 5 huge things, probably 5 of the biggest things that affect you and your life and how you live here in Canada. And it's all because of one man in this country, not the leader of the country, not the party that leads the country, but because of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. He's the guy we need right now. We need an election. We need somebody who thinks seriously about these things and will drive the agenda and drive Canada forward, not backward as we've been going over the last 9 years. Thanks a lot for watching the video. I do appreciate it. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.